Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. And we're very pleased and honored to be welcoming back to the program somebody who we are very honored to call a friend of the program, John Horvat II. John wrote a new article. He's going to tell you where to find it. You should go read the full article. But Joe and I felt that this was an important conversation to have because we have the emergence, it seems to me, and John can correct me if I'm wrong. I think in the last couple of years, we're seeing this emergence of those who value Christianity, but not completely. So John calls them the cultural Christians, but the article is the dangers of cultural Christianity. And like I said, that's a very important conversation to have and something that we want to highlight. Please, wherever you're watching this, X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. John's going to let us know where you can read the full article. But I want to just give you a quote, and then we're going to jump right in. John writes, "There can be no Christianity without Christ. From the very beginning, Christians have always changed the culture. However, the greater danger is when a secularized culture pretends to be friendly and tries to change Christians to its image and likeness." John Horvat II, welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe, our brother.
Great to be back. Always great to be back.
Absolutely. Now, many of you know John Horvat. Having said that, John is a scholar, researcher, educator, international speaker, and author of Return to Order: From a Frenzied Economy to an Organic Christian Society, Where We've Been, How We Got Here, and Where We Need to Go. I highly recommend getting that book and reading it because I think it really aptly describes our current economic situation. His writings have appeared worldwide, including in the Wall Street Journal, Fox News, the Christian Post, the Washington Times, ABC News, Crisis Magazine, LifeSite News, and C-SPAN. For more than 2 decades. He's been researching and writing about the socio-economic crisis in the United States. So, John, I think I said that correctly. Let's start there. I'm noticing this in like the last couple of years. Okay. I think with the emergence of people like, and you could add to the list. I think immediately when you say cultural Christian, I think Jordan Peterson. Okay, I think he has a lot of good things to say because if you're talking about the things that, let's say, Christianity places value on, okay, particularly our behavior, how we act both in our personal lives and within society. Those are beautiful things, wonderful things, but it's not complete. So let me throw that over to you to start. So what exactly? How would you describe a cultural Christian?
Right. The culture of Christian is not something I coined. I mean, it's something that's out there. And even there are websites, leftist websites, saying how these cultural Christians have taken over the conservative movement. And there are a lot of these are cultural Christians are people who self-identify as Christians because they recognize there are some values there that are interesting, they're nice, that are good, but they don't see the Christianity as a profession of the faith. They see it as a cultural thing. And so for them, Christianity is what they call a culture identity marker. I'm Christian because or I identify as Christian, or I think Christianity is nice, and therefore, that qualifies them as Christian. And so it's a very shallow definition of Christian, very, very shallow. So as you mentioned, we have people like Jordan Peterson, who is an atheist and admits himself to be an atheist. You have people like Elon Musk, who does not live, has a very chaotic moral life, that to say the least. You have people like even Richard Dawkins, who is an atheist, who's a self-proclaimed atheist. He's part of the new atheist movement, and still says he's an atheist, but he says, well, culturally, I think there's some good things there that I can hang on to. And so these are people who are making statements in the name of Christianity, and they have all the trappings of Christianity. But when you go down deep, there's nothing there. The substance is not there. The moral code is not there. It's a very crazy situation because we need more than ever that moral code and the substance of Christianity, which gives our movement the dynamism. When you take that away, you're left with just a cultural identity marker that doesn't mean that much.
Right. I mean, there are. I mean, I listen to a lot of people who identify like that, like you mentioned Richard Dawkins. Okay.
Yes,
Now I'm a troublemaker, John. You know that. You've been on the show a million times. My response to Richard Dawkins would be, "You're an atheist. Come up with your own worldview. Don't take anything from Christianity. You seem to have a tremendous amount of disdain for Christianity. He's always shown that, by the way. I'm not making
yes,
that up. That's
right.
demonstrable. But yet he says he'd rather live in a Christian society than he would in any other society.
Right. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, but it is a tendency to turn religion into culture. And religion is not culture. It influences the culture. It inspires the culture, but it is not culture. And so it becomes a culture like any other part of the culture, and it loses its distinctiveness. It loses its foundation. Religion is the foundation of culture, and they've turned it into just something, a box that you can check off and say, "Well, I'm Christian," and don't get too moral about it. Just stay in that cultural box, and everything will be all right. And I don't think that is something I think is very dangerous.
John, let me ask you this, just to go down a little historical lane here. Okay, take Marxism for example. Okay, do you think that one of the appeals early on, or maybe even nowadays, about the Marxist worldview was almost, again, please correct me if you disagree. Um, it was almost a Christian impulse, this idea of the, call it brotherhood of man, workers of the world unite, looking out for your fellow working man. Do you think a lot of that had to do? I mean, obviously, it took root in Christian Europe. Marxism took root in Christian Europe. That was the attraction of, let's say, a lot of people who were true believers in Marxism. Or you think I'm wrong?
So Marxism took advantage of a very real thing that industrialization was taking place and was destroying society and destroying the social links and everything that made society that kept society prosperous and kept people Christian. But it ran with it and turned it into something else. Obviously, it never. Marx never had the intention of finding something like Christianity. He definitely had something more in mind because for him, religion was the opium of the masses, and it's a completely different philosophy. But certainly, a lot of leftists inside the church ran with that. The liberation theologians said, "Well, this is gospel, and we can find some kind of justification for the Marxist class struggle." And obviously, you can. Obviously, you find the opposite. Christianity harmonizes society, whereas Marxism divides society and turns it into a huge struggle and battle among Christians. So you have
Mhm.
very different things, but evil always likes to counterfeit, and so there's always this tendency to counterfeit the things of the church and to monkey the church and to imitate the church, but always in a way which is a caricature. It's not in any way similar.
No, right. Thanks for that, John. John, real quick, the article itself appears where our audience members could go and read the full article.
If you go on returntoorder.org, you'll find it on the front page. It's on the front page. And it's also on tfp.org, but you'll have to search for it. But search cultural Christian, you'll find it. Yeah, that's where you'll find it.
Okay, awesome. If you're just joining me here at the front line with Joe and Joe and with John Horvat II, we're discussing the dangers of cultural Christianity. So, obviously, John, let's get a little specific. What are the Christian ideas that would attract the cultural Christian?
The cultural Christian is very, let's say, sociological, not theological, not moral. The cultural Christian tends to sideline the culture war issues, the hot buttons, sexual revolution issues. They don't want to get involved in those. They'll talk about work, solidarity, um, let's say, um, prosperity, trade policies. Their idea is that if you give a person a good job and a lot, just make sure he has a lot of money and good job, things will click into place, and you'll have thriving families. You'll get the young people out of the basement and just start working away because work has a almost redemptive value for them. So they are very, in a certain sense, they have a very a obsession with the idea of work as something that is redemptive, and of course I would disagree with that. That's not what motivates people. What motivates people is God and salvation, sanctification. This is a very uh, Marxist-like type thing, that I think is dangerous in that sense. Work does help people, but it's not going to transform people. What transform people will be a moral conversion.
And that's where even before John, I saw your article and I wanted we wanted to talk to you about this. Um, I've said for a while now, like we're looking in the wrong places as
Mhm,
Catholics. Okay, we're looking in the wrong places. And let's say the American Christian. Okay, your
mhm,
your your average American Christian. I'll give you a perfect example, and I think you'll know what I'm talking about. You're getting these people who are really like sexually libertine. Okay,
mhm.
but somehow they're on our side. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that obviously there's not areas of agreement. Okay,
Mhm,
I think of somebody like, let's say, an Andrew Tate. Okay, very very popular. Obviously, he's a young guy, drives fast cars, he's with hot women, all this kind of stuff. But yet somehow, some way, conservative men seem to prop him up
mhm.
as an example of what we're supposed to aspire to. And I'm like, and I, again, just in my heart, I was like, no, 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 that's wrong. Okay, I could agree with the dude. We could talk about certain things. But at the end of the day, he's living a lifestyle that's completely contradictory
Mhm.
to what I'm trying to do as a Catholic man in America. And I think you know where I'm going with that. We have to really be on guard for that, don't we?
Absolutely. I mean, you've given it's a perfect point because a lot of the people that are involved in the cultural Christianity, not all of them, but they attract the religious person. They use religious imagery and even rhetoric, but some of them are frankly pagans and call themselves pagans. They do not live a Catholic lifestyle. They are very favorable to homosexuality, same-sex marriage. Then the abortion issue does not resonate with them. So these are fundamental issues that are part of our part of the moral code of Christianity, and the tendency is to try to separate them, and that is extremely dangerous because you are getting rid of the issues that are probably the most powerful issues that we have, and going to talk about solidarity and work, which really doesn't set people on fire.
Right, and that's where I get skeptical. Like if you look, let's say, full. I mean, everybody knows I voted for Donald Trump. Okay,
Mhm,
I didn't look at it necessarily as the lesser of two evils because I just think the other side is so completely insane.
mhm,
And I mean that on every level, economics,
mhm,
the sexual issues, all those. To me, they're completely insane. And there's a lot of good that Trump is proposing. But here's my question I've asked a lot of, let's say, I have libertarian friends, I have atheist friends. I've asked to say, okay, let's say this quote unquote MAGA movement, okay, looking at it as a movement, okay, of a
mhm,
lot of different people. Is my voice going to be heard? That's what I asked pointedly. I said, now
mhm,
I'm pro life. I'm against gay marriage. Transgenderism needs to go into the ash heap of history.
mhm,
Okay. Am I allowed at the table? You're going to hear my voice when I talk about the abolition of the slaughter of the unborn? Like I
mhm.
want an answer. Or is that you're just going to give us, just pretend like you're paying attention to us, but not really?
Right. I mean, you definitely had that. I mean, the GOP platform took out the abortion plank and the marriage plank, traditional marriage plank, almost without discussion, and forced it through. And so a lot of people felt they were thrown under the bus by that, and I certainly do. I think we need to keep up the pressure so that the politicians feel the pressure and will somehow respond. I mean, from that point of view, the appearance of J.D. Vance at the March for Life was an extremely helpful thing. It really it helped it make people enthusiasm. And President Trump also spoke at via Zoom at the March for Life. So those are definitely things that we have an obligation to keep the pressure on because those issues are still out there. They still are very attractive and powerful. And of course, the politicians are going to take notice as a resort of that. But it's probably more on our part than on their part.
No, I know. I hear you on that. And what would you? This may seem like an obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What distinguishes this cultural Christianity from true Christianity?
Well, the cultural the cultural Christianity is a it's kind of it's an outgrowth of identity politics. The identity politics is say, well, you are what you profess yourself to be, and so it is more of a sticker, a label, something that is you profess, but not as a profession of faith, not as the worship of the one true God, but only as a sort of a category which you put yourself into, whereas the authentic Christian sees God as something as a personal savior, and but also sees God that God does intervene in history and He does help us. We are He will come to the aid of our movement, of our people, in very concrete ways. It's not an imaginary thing. So the cultural Christian likes the ideas of Christianity, but acts as if God does not exist. And that is one of the big dangers, because if you lower the bar and make that the bar for any type of Christian activism, you're acting as if God does not exist, and you're saying, well, we have some nice ideas, but our ideas are pretty much like everybody else's ideas. They don't have that dynamism and the power that they normally, supernatural power that they normally should have.
John, would you agree with me if I said that the problem is it's we're still putting I and me at the center of everything
Definitely.
rather than God?
Yeah, definitely that is it. I mean, the idea is that the political situation is there for me and my prosperity and my good. I'm going to have we want to live a good life, a prosperous life, which we should want to, but that's not our goal in living lives. And our life is a vale of tears. We will always have suffering. We'll always have death, and we have to deal with that. And the greatest happiness that we can arrive at on earth is our eternal happiness and the worship of God. It is something that we are made for this. And when we put our faith in ourselves and in creatures and in things, we will inevitably be frustrated.
All right. And John, I've read your book, and we talked about your book. We had you on the show. This is a while back, from a friend, Return to Order, from a frenzied economy to an organic Christian society.
Yes.
Isn't that going to remain though? Like with this, even with, let's say, this cultural Christianity, and we're seeing it. And I'm not going to point the finger at anybody and judge them to say that their professed love of Jesus Christ is somehow fake or put on. I'm not doing that. But it seems
Mhm.
to be a little trendy now. I hate to
Yeah,
sound that
and
way.
some of these people will probably be the first to say, "Well, I don't have a love for Jesus Christ. I'm an atheist, but I like some Christian ideas." Or Vivek Ramaswamy, he's not even Christian; he's Hindu, but he likes spiritual things, so he's spiritual. That's lowering the bar pretty far. So you don't
I
even
guess
have to be Christian. You don't even have to believe in God. You don't even have to, you just have to be somewhat spiritual or say some nice things about Christ, and you can become a cultural Christian.
and all the and but all of our problems at the end of the day, if we embrace as a nation, to just keeping it with America, if we
Mhm.
embrace as a nation this cultural Christianity, none of our problems are going away. Now, and that I mean that from the economic standpoint. That's why I mentioned your book. Okay,
Mhm.
we're still a frenzied economy.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
unless God is at the center, you're still going to be reaching for things.
right.
Okay, frenetic. I think you called it frenetic intemperance.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes,
that remains. The sexual problems remain.
yes,
Abortion remains.
yes.
What really changes at the end of the day? We pay down some debt, maybe at the end of the day. I don't know what the
Right. Yeah.
outcome is. How it would be much different than where we're at right now.
Not too much different. It may stall the process a bit, and we won't go to the woke problems that we have. We won't go to certain some of these crazy leftist things, but this process is still going on, and we are still in the middle of it, and we haven't really addressed essentials, as you said. I mean, we haven't really uh, gone to causes.
Right. John, let me ask you one final question, and I would encourage everybody out there, please go and read the article. Go read the full article, and please go out and buy John's book. Go read his book, Return to Order. I'm telling you, I was so enlightened after I read it, and I mean that, John. I mean that
Yeah.
sincerely. And when I read it, I because I think we all think these things. We think that something's off, something's wrong. Your book really, really focuses us. Hey, look. This is the problem. And so I recommend everybody go out there, go to returntoorder.org, and you can buy the book there. And I'm sure John will let us know where else you could buy it. So, at the end of the day, what are we to do? Catholic men in particular, all right, but all Catholics in particular. What should our reaction be? Obviously, we have to work and play with these people who are essentially or ostensibly we're in the same movement, it seems, or at least that's what we're told. How do we proceed? What's the best route for us?
I think we need to double down on our faith and say, well, this is what we're all about. We're not going to water it down. We're not afraid to talk about it in the public square. We have to we have to deal with these problems. We have to be prudent, obviously, but we need to really affirm our faith, because that is what attracts men, is when when you are very strong in your faith and you are willing to, to fight for it. These are the kind of wimpy faith does not attract men, especially Catholic men. And we need to have a faith that is, that moves mountains, that, says, well, we don't accept this. We want God, that is our thing. That we want the real thing.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, Joe Rossinello says on the show all the time, American Christianity, it's a mile wide and an inch deep.
Yes.
And because again, I hate talking like this sometimes because I don't want to make it seem to anybody who's listening to us that I'm better than you. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter
No.
of acknowledging that our faith needs to go much, much deeper, and how that plays out, not just in our lives, but in society in general. These are important things. If you want long-lasting solutions to our
Mhm.
problems, we have to go deep. We say on the show, you got to get into the breach. You can't just accept everything because it's going to be okay politically. John, leave our audience, if you don't mind, with a final word and where they could read the full article and learn more about you and everything you have going on.
Yeah, the final thing would be to say, well, we want God. That's the If you want a program from our life, we want God. We want God, who is our King. We want God, our Father, who will that that's the final thing. If we can't accept anything less than that, and especially this very strong tendency to turn religion into culture, a cultural thing, a culture identity marker, which is not what religion ever is or should be. Let's get away from identity politics and enter into our faith. And so
Absolutely.
the article is found on returntoorder.org. You can go there. I think it's called Beware of the Catholic, the Christian, Cultural Christian. You can get the book there. You can get the book on any other places, Amazon, wherever you want to, wherever you buy your book. Yes, you can get it there.
Awesome. John Horvat, as always, thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure talking to you. So yeah, anytime you write something, it's always good to have you on and hash us out. And let's use I'm tired of calling it social media, John. I'm calling it new media. Let's
Right.
use let's use the new media to get these messages out there. And little by little, we're going to chip away. I mean, we're going to chip away at this. John Horvat, thanks always for coming on the show. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. God bless.
God bless you. Now, wherever you're watching this, please X Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Go on returntoorder.org. Go read the article. Go buy John's book. And we're just going to keep it moving. So once again, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.